Hello, Dylan Sara here. I am so grateful to all of you for watching this video and all of my subscribers. In the last 3 months, I think I've gone from 70 subscribers to almost 400 at the time of filming this. So thank you to each and every one of you. I'm really appreciative, so grateful for your interest in my work. And I would like to celebrate that by sharing a video with you that I made a year ago for my Patreon supporters. So every month I've been creating a video for my supporters over on Patreon, and it's a full-length, real-time portrait tutorial. I thought it'd be nice to share that with you now. So you can check this out. If you're interested in my Patreon page, then please check it out at the link in the description below. And leave a comment here if you like. Say hello and like and subscribe and all of those things, because I'm just so grateful for the recent growth of my YouTube channel, and I really look forward to sharing a lot more with you here. So many thanks and enjoy this video. Quick sketches is like the foundation of my practice, and super fun because we get to see lots of faces and meet lots of people in this way and have lots of practice. So this is where I'd like to start with today, with the idea of starting a loose sketch and bringing it up to kind of a level of finish, which is still sketchy and loose and fun, and something that ideally is really easy to find time for and to practice. And hopefully really fun, and just a great way to learn. The more we draw, the more we see, the more we can, communicate that in our work, and that's what it's all about, really. Just seeing and then finding a way to represent it on paper. So have fun, and let's get into our first tutorial video together. Before we get started, I just want to show you something which has really been the core of my practice over the past year, which is these quick timed sketches. So this is something I do every week, and we start with 30-second, 1 minute, 2 minute, 4 minute, 6 minute poses. And this is something which has really helped to train observation and quickly getting some lines down, and not to think too much about things before just diving into it. So these are, I've had a lot of practice, and I would encourage others to do the same, because the more you see, the more you draw, the easier this process becomes of just putting lines down, making marks. And so, most of the drawings I did throughout this process would finish at the 6 minute mark. And something I've just been getting into more and more is I love the brevity, just some of these quick poses, how they're dynamic and there's this life to it. And something I've been doing more and more is returning to these quick sketches. So like even something like this, which could be really brief, to just get that down, to capture something and then return to this, because there's a kind of life and dynamic feel to these quick drawings, which can get lost in a long pose. And it's been my constant challenge to keep that looseness and life in a long process piece as well. So that's something I'm constantly working on, trying to do, and what I'm going to share with you today, we'll kick it off with a few really quick, loose sketches, just to get a bit of insight into the way I practice, I guess, and then we'll finish it off with one which will be fairly quick, but then really build it up and get into some more detail and sculpting of the form. And I usually, I really enjoy getting in touch with my muse and kind of sharing the voices of others, and the whole process of portrait sketching, I think, is really interesting way to connect to people. But this has been pretty on the fly. This is the first ever one of these videos, so I'm going to start with myself. And I've got a few, I'm in Procreate here. I've got a few images. We'll do some quick sketches. I'll make all of these available to you as well. But you can also just draw along from the video. This is fairly inexpensive, recycled sketchbook, like recycled paper from the supermarket. And I'm going to use Faber-Castell pencils, but it doesn't really matter what you use. You can use anything you want. And I don't have a timer with me at the moment. During the Drawing with Dylan sessions, we have a timer, and it's all very organised. And now I'm just going to kind of do it on the fly, just do some quick sketches to go through the way I kind of look at it. And yeah, so not having much time to deliberate and just start getting into things, and just constantly looking around the picture, and there's not a set starting point. It's just kind of whatever grabs your attention, just start drawing and see where it takes you. And often I find that I really enjoy drawing from images that have a really clear, strong relationship between light and shadow. So just by finding those darker objects and getting into it, those shapes, it can be really helpful. So don't have to get too hung up on the likeness, because it's just really quick, really loose. And something I really enjoy is sometimes the accidents or the inconsistencies in those quick sketches somehow bring a life to the drawing that wouldn't be if you just had it really accurate. All right, we'll keep that one at that. I chose a somewhat happy one here because someone recently said, I always seem so happy in my videos and stuff, and and I posted a bunch of really serious selfies on Instagram for people to draw from. And I guess I haven't, I don't know, my relationship to selfies of myself, I find it, I don't know, difficult to smile at the camera when no one's behind it. And I think, being serious, and I guess this is me not being serious, pulling these serious faces at myself. So I just want to make pretty clear lines. Sometimes you can double up on lines. But not hesitating too much, just put a line down. It's maybe part of the challenge. I definitely used to do things like this where I notice a lot of people do it, and then you can apply that kind of thing to effect. But I think from all the drawing with ink practice, which we will cover in another video because it's just has been such a huge teacher to me, has really helped me just to commit to a line. And here we don't need to get too much into the shadow and stuff. Just kind of putting down a loose shape with the idea that if we wanted, we could come back and fill this out and make it a more finished sketch. So this is very sketchy, and we'll finish up with a a more finished sketch at the end of this session. So this kind of thing is just, helps to get into the flow. So we're not deliberating too much, we're just getting drawing. And I like to use Procreate to look at reference in if I'm looking on the iPad, because you can make it any size you want. You can move it, put it over close to the edge of the screen. But maybe if you're working from your phone or working from the desktop, this definitely is like a shortcut and help you to. It's easy to cross over from here to here. You've got this alignment with your sketch, which we don't always have. So it's good to practice in different ways as well, and not become totally dependent on always having your reference right next to you. Also, of course, really good to draw from life. But I do enjoy working from a good, clear reference photo. So the moustache here is just like this big, clear, dark shape. A little bit of lip here, and then this big beard shape. Having a clear, distinct separation of these different shapes, especially when it's like light and shadow shapes, is something that's going to be more helpful. And as we get into a longer, or maybe with this one, kind of expanding into it, I will also start to show kind of the process of making it, working towards that longer pose. Because here, this is what I mean by this, like here would be the highlight shape, and just kind of making a block that later on, okay, so there's light here, light here, light here. This is kind of a light shape in the lip. And here we've got a highlight, but you can kind of map it in a bit, but it's not like this highlight. And then within the shadow shapes, finding where are these blocks of shadow that we're going to fill in. And you may notice I'm doing this a bit lighter than those initial hard lines, because it's going to be more of a guide, something we can fill out. Maybe revisit and reinforce some of this line work later on, but just these little shapes are just going to help for that next step later on of being able to fill that in. So I'll do one more quick one, and then do one which is going to become more finalized. So you can feel free to slow this down, but I think following in real time is probably helpful. But you can press pause and do whatever. This is like my main thing I've been practicing recently. Taking time to do this is also totally valid, but I have found that I really learn a lot through this quick sketch process. But feel free to pause and take a breath and take your time. And I guess, in case you haven't seen any of my other videos, I've gone through quite a bit in my sketchy class and live streams and stuff. The process that I'm going through here, because I don't really enjoy doing a meticulous planning out of the anatomy and stuff, so it's always just comparing shape to shape, which sometimes can really go off the rails. But that's also really helpful. Like if you end up with something where you're like, oh, it doesn't look like that, if then you can figure out what is it that doesn't look like that. So here, for example, this angle of the scarf, this is a really, I remember really clearly trying to do things like this where these angles, I couldn't see them, I couldn't reproduce them. And I would be like, okay, so there's this almost straight line here, and then there's this like angle of the eye in here. What kind of angle, what is the difference that we have there? And I don't know, maybe I would do like, okay, so I've got this straight line, and then I've got this eye here, and so this is more steep than it actually is. So it's like this, and but if you really carefully look at it, like, oh no, it's actually more like this angle. And if you're hoping to get a likeness, these little things like the relationship of these angles to each other, to not do this, but or to do it and then realize, oh, there's something wrong here, and then find so I'm talking about this. Find that angle. What is the actual angle? How flat is this? Oh, it's not really flat, there's a bit of a curve. So you may start thinking of it as this flat line, which can be helpful just to get things going. But then when you realize, okay, there's this subtle curve to it, and then we've got this shape here, and there's like this shape which kind of has this angle which continues over here. And just looking at all these angles, the way the angles and different shapes, the different light and shadow shapes, how they relate to each other. How do they interconnect and intersect, and just looking at all these different shapes, trying to recognize. And you could use your pencil as a tool if you can't see it by eye. Like, okay, so I've got my straight line here. How much of an angle do I actually have? I'm looking over to the paper, and this is the kind of stuff this really helped me along the way to see, okay, you've got that, and what, I'm not going to measure it with a protractor or something, but what kind of angle is this? And this is what I'm constantly doing as I'm drawing with these quick things as well. So it's something I've trained and practiced a lot. To be like, what is the relationship between these different shapes? So I hope that makes sense to you. If at any stage in any of these videos you have any questions or want further clarification with something, or would like to delve more into that kind of thing, measuring by eye, anything you have an interest in or think that you need help with, or if you see something that you enjoy in my process and would like me to elaborate upon it, let me know. Like, I'm really keen on community, and I'd love to chat and maybe cover specific things in different videos. So let me get in touch. Let me know how this was for you, or if there are other things, or if there's something where I just kind of briefly skim over it, and you're like, oh, that's something I really need more of. Let me know, and we can go into it in more depth. yeah, so this is basically, okay, this is this one. And each one of these could potentially become a more fleshed out, sculpted, finished drawing. But I have one more, and this is going to be this will be the finished one for this session. And I've got my little zine here, which is nearly full. A bunch of supporters will be getting this. I'm going to make like life-size reproductions of it, and I just love this format, and it's got some cool little like surprise pages. And I thought I could put me into one of them and say thanks to people. So I'll put me in here. So I'm going to, up here, I'll thank all of the muses and thank my supporters, and this will be me thanking people. So once again, I'll start this, and just the same kind of way I did those last ones there. And start, I've got this pretty clear head shape here. And this one, as we, so I'm still just going with the 3B. I'm not too worried about like having a sharp, crisp pencil line at this stage. And look, these little things like wobbly lines, it's okay. In a lot of classes that I've done, people are like, I can't draw straight lines. It's like, oh well, just, it's okay. Sometimes my lines are pretty wobbly. But helpful for that is using your whole arm, not just working from the wrist and fingers to go from your shoulder and elbow as you draw lines, to use your whole body, or as much of it as you need to. And sometimes I have to remind myself to stay loose. I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be longer. I'm going to slow down, have more time, and then somehow that life and dynamic feeling to the sketches, which I was talking about earlier, that can get lost. So I have to constantly like remind myself, if I want to be loose, that I've got to stay loose. Treat it like a 1 minute, 2 minute timed sketch. So I think that the other ones I were doing seemed more accurate than this one, but that's okay. It's part of the thing, you know, you just create something loose and then just go with it. As I'm drawing this, I'm like, oh, this is, you know, a bit thin, a bit long, but that's all right. Let's just go with it and see what happens. There'll still be opportunity to change things as we progress a bit. I was working on this sketch the day before yesterday? Or was it yesterday? No, the day before. And I started with it and started really loose, and then I noticed as I checked the reference, I was like, oh, There were things that I was not happy with, like the eyes were a bit too low. Something in the corner of the mouth was really very different. And so I started really loose and then just kind of fine-tuned things a lot. And then, the approach and your kind of your desired goal or expectations can be different each time. So even from this really loose state, it can be a good point to expand from and go into detail. So let's say that's this sketch. Pretty loose, and now we're gonna build it up to a more kind of sculpted finish. And something I really enjoy doing is vertical hatching. It's just a simplified way to fill in form and detail in a way which is actually not very detailed and not realistic, but it's a method of, I guess it's a stylistic choice which simplifies the process. So you don't have to do this exactly the way I do, of course. But also, if you want to try it out, feel free to do it. Don't feel like you can't do it because I'm doing it, because lots of people do it. It's also an important part of the learning and trying things out and seeing what you like, putting it through your process and seeing what sticks, what you incorporate and what you let go. So this is usually a pretty good point to set up like the light and dark relationship and contrast. Unfortunately here there's a lot of contrast, so it's pretty easy just to block in some of these shapes, and it helps to kind of establish that because it becomes this ongoing point of reference of like how dark are things in relationship to other things. That can be strategic if you're working on something really big and you tend to lean on your drawing a lot, either to put paper over it or leave that until the end or something. So I'm going to make that a lot darker as well, but just for now, still sticking with this initial 3B. I really like dark, soft pencils. I really like ink. We'll get into ink a lot more. But since 30 Faces, 30 Days, 2021, January, there was the pencil edition, and that really got me back into pencil. It's such a wonderful everyday, everywhere drawing tool, and it doesn't have to be any fancy brand or whatever. You can just use any pencil, really. It can be really nice to have nice tools, but having nice tools or not having them should not be the difference between making something and not. All right, so it's interesting when we get into like this the skin values, because it's all very bright. But maybe it'd be good like these highlights, like I mentioned in the other sketch, to kind of be like these super bright highlights. I think they're in lighting terms called specular highlights, where it's really super bright. There's not a lot of them. But here's like a highlight. Just kind of blocking that in a bit can be helpful as we get into the hatching, to be like, oh, what's this shape? And then checking in again. Oh yeah, all right, so that's pretty bright. Gonna go around that. And everything that's not that bright, we could just really softly fill in. Just keep double checking to be like, okay, is there any kind of highlights that I missed? And it's pretty subtle, like this is fairly light, but just making a clear distinction between the highlights and that lightness. I think now I'll move along to a darker pencil. And I guess 5B, I often really, I like using a knife to sharpen pencils, but I just use this sharpener. It's quick and easy. But I like with a knife, when you sharpen a pencil with a knife, that you have all these kind of different quality edges. But sometimes, being on point can be nice. And I really like a big thing I like is contrast. So contrast in line quality, have some stuff really scratchy and loose, and then some stuff really crisp, and contrast in terms of light and dark, and contrast is something that gives a special kind of visual interest. Okay, so now I'm going to go around kind of re-establishing some of these edges, and I like just pushing the line work a bit. So setting up a different, some areas you leave, like the underside of the eye, is fairly light compared to the upper eyelid, and just having that variety in line strength, variety and contrast. Since we're working with a pencil rather than ink, even with ink, you can really, you can create a really lovely array of different kinds of line quality. I just noticed here there's like this ridge in the hair of the eyebrow, which is interesting, that the underside is kind of much darker there, and I'm noticing within this space that there's like a darker shadow area. So just kind of like a little shape and hatch that out a bit. I think, hair is really interesting, whether it's on top of the head or under the head, wherever it is, because it can be so intricate. But this kind of just blocking in, I think, is a cool way to simplify and quickly fill in that space. But then there also are some places where there's, something which is stands out. Here there's this kind of interesting flow and shape, and so on top of this just block of shadow which we've established, we can also create some differentiation and different kind of, just add a few little areas without getting really locked into like every beard hair. It's interesting, the hair up on top of the head is really, it's not as dark as down here, much lighter. This sandstone formation, by the way, is in the forest near where I live. I went there a couple of days ago with Holly, my little one, and such a cool place. It's called the Jägersteine, the hunter's stones. And there are a lot of amazing sandstone formations in the forest where I live. And get more into nature and natural art supplies in future videos. I'm gonna hatch this up a bit darker. I think there's some really cool stuff happening in here. I'm just gonna give a bit more weight and darkness, block in the beard some more. A little bit of variation here. Totally blunting this pencil as I hatch like this, but that's okay, because don't need too much detail here. But you may be familiar with this. If you're drawing on the edge of a pencil, it creates, you get this flat side, and then you get a super crisp, sharp edge here. So as you're drawing, if you're conscious of the way you're hatching and stuff, you're actually sharpening your pencil at the same time, because it's flattened out over here. But now I can really, if there was somewhere I wanted some really crisp line, while hatching, I've actually really sharpened at the same time. Here. There's often some wild, loose hairs, which can make the edge quality interesting. Just put a bit of variation in there. Yeah, and I think maybe we have it. I'll take a moment to see if there's something else we could intensify, or here there's a bit more. What can we sculpt a bit more here? This edge, there's often, even if there's not facial hair, there's often like an interesting edge below the lip. And as I go around, I can see the places where there are, inaccuracies. That's been a result of just that quick initial sketch. And if you can start to notice those things, then you can really, grab onto it, and you can change it if you want the likeness to be more spot on. But this kind of, I don't know, has a little bit of a caricature quality to it, I guess. There's something to it, those inconsistencies with the original reference, that I often find really kind of fun. I'm going to darken up the frames here, make it really dark. I think that's going to create some nice contrast around the eyes, because yeah, that's cool. Areas of high contrast draw our attention. Yeah, I think that was a good decision. Could put a bit more into these wrinkles maybe, but it's not very dark. This is all within the light area. If you squint at the reference image, you'll notice that even though it looks like intense shadow here, but you squint at it, and in the overall scheme of things, it's really quite light. So if I went in with my dark pencil there and put these dark lines there, it would be a bit overpowering. So I just take this 3B, go back to the 3B, and just put a bit in there. Some tiny little hatching marks. To give it more form, rather than just a clear line, a bit more form there. Maybe a little hatching here in the hair. And I think we're done. Are we done? Yeah, sure. This is just the first video. We have time. All right, cool. I hope you have enjoyed this video. You keep looking, you can keep seeing things. Sometimes it's good to stop. Sometimes you just have to stop. Let's stop. So I hope you enjoyed that first little tutorial video as part of the Patreon educational series, just practicing together and playing with line quality and having loose drawings which we then build up and keep giving more attention to. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that. I'd really love to see your work. So you can paste it, you can post it in Patreon. Of course, Instagram, you could use the hashtag Drawing with Dylan and tag me, because I would love to share the work that you do as well. And any questions you have, feel free to ask. If you have any suggestions for future videos, yeah, there'll be hands soon, because someone asked recently about drawing hands. And yeah, it's summer, poppies are starting to blossom, so I'm definitely going to be doing stuff with poppy petal ink, and there's just so much we can explore and do together. So if you've enjoyed this, then maybe some friends of yours would too. The more people who get into these classes, the more I'll be able to dedicate my time to them and maybe make it more regular, more than once a month. Because there's just so much to draw and so much to do and so much to share. So feel free, to tell people about this, get other people on board, and I would really enjoy creating a live, like a hybrid, pre-recorded and then live event. So the more people that get into this, then we can start doing some live sessions together where we can really elaborate upon what we've covered in these videos together. And it's just cool hanging out live. So that's something I'd love to do. So spread the word, have fun drawing, and thank you so much for your support. And we'll see you next time. Or you'll see me next time. I hope to see you on Instagram or somewhere, or Zoom.